or subject matter jurisdiction. Public comment periods are limited to 3 minutes per person, and the total amount of time for public comment is 15 minutes. Persons participating by way of video conference or teleconference shall ensure their audio is muted at all times, except when the board chair announces public comment periods. At those designated times, members of the public wishing to speak shall enable their audio and state their name for the record. When multiple members of the public wish to speak, the clerk will determine the order of speakers and announce their names accordingly. To ensure proper conduct, the board reserves the right to mute the audio and video of any member of the public violating generally accepted principles and decorum of official public meetings. We do not have any in person. Let me check for virtual. No virtual either.
All right. Nobody here has public comment. Okay, we'll move on. Consent items.
Move to approve. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, thank you. Discussion items. Receive update on the South County Infrastructure Project. Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a quick PowerPoint. As you know, Wheatland, Olivehurst Public Utility District, the county, and Yuba-Sutter have been working on this collaborative effort to bring water and wastewater infrastructure to the south of the county. The purpose of today's presentation is to give you an update. Haven't heard from me. I gave you a little respite there for about 6 months, but wanted to bring everybody up to speed to where we stand and where we're going, because we expect, we hope that there are going to be many more decisions that we're going to be bringing you more quickly this year. On the agenda today, or for this presentation, just give you a quick overview, go over the schedule, the funding, the next step. Happy to answer any questions you have. Bill Zanoni, the city manager for Wheatland, is also here, and he'd be happy to answer any questions you have. So let's start with, why are we doing this? Well, the first reason is because Wheatland's wastewater treatment plant was built in the 60s. It was built on the, I'm speaking just in layman's terms, on the wrong side of the levee. And whenever we have a high water event, discharges right into the Bear River. I'll repeat something that was said at the recent Wheatland City Council meeting, which is that it might last another 3 years. It's being held together with Band-Aids right now. The other challenge with that, the real challenge with that, is that Wheatland did a study in 2019 to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? And for Wheatland to rebuild or build a new wastewater treatment plant, if they could find an adequate site to do that, now this is in 2019 dollars, would cost about $250 million. That means for the number of users they have on their system, each user's bill would go up by about $1,000 a month. Okay, that's not going to work. So the study that was done in 2019 offered a couple alternatives to that. And the most viable alternative and the most frankly common sense alternative was to connect with either OPUD or Linda, and not to build another plant, but to create more of a regional system. OPUD has available capacity. So they're operating at about 50% capacity right now. That's only a challenge because that makes the plant less efficient to run and means that those overhead costs are spread amongst all of the OPUD users. So if they more fully utilize their plant, then probably sewer rates won't go down, but they won't go up as fast in the future. Beale's wastewater treatment plant. Beale has a 1940s era wastewater treatment plant that we understand and have been told overflows and discharges into the local creeks even in kind of not so high water events, kind of medium range water events. So when discharges go into the local creeks, eventually it makes its way into the Bear River. And Yuba-Water is concerned about that because within our mission, we take care of surface water and the quality of that water, as well as the quality and quantity of the groundwater. And so, of course, if you have overflowing wastewater treatment plants, that could affect the quality of the groundwater as well. And I want to be really clear about Beal. Beal is not, I didn't say that Beal was one of the collaborating partners right now. Okay. The reason I bring Beal up here is because, first of all, bad water isn't just going to stay on Beal, right? It's going to come off of Beal. So we're concerned about that. With this wastewater treatment plant line going up there, this will be the closest Beal has ever been to connecting to a regional system. And so they could use it as their primary wastewater treatment system. They could use it as a redundant system. That's in the future, but it's a problem that a challenge that this project could help solve. There has been a lack, the next one is a lack of infrastructure in the South County. County identified this as it needed infrastructure 25 or 30 years ago. Easy. And, you know, the county, as the Board of Supervisors know, you have in your general plan designated commercial and industrial zones along that 65 corridor. There's really nothing there that's commercial or industrial right now, and that's because there's no infrastructure there. There's no wastewater infrastructure to attach to. It makes it financially not viable to build any businesses there. And really the challenge and the reason nothing's happened in 30 years is just the funding issue. It's hard to bring multiple jurisdictions together to work on it, and it's a very expensive project. So in 2020, one of our elected directors brought Wheatland, OPUD, the county, and me together. And what are we going to do about this? We can solve this. And so that launched the whole collaborative effort to bring wastewater infrastructure to the south of the county and water. So this is roughly where it's going to go. The kind of aqua color that you can see that goes from Wheatland up to just like the Highway 65 sign, that is Wheatland's. So Wheatland has designed that conveyance system. They will own and operate that conveyance system. At that pump station 21, at that Highway 65 sign, from there to the OPUD wastewater treatment plant, you can see both colors are there because that's where Wheatland's effluent is going to flow. That actually is owned by OPUD. And OPUD, of course, owns the wastewater treatment plant. So OPUD has done the design and will own all that. So that's what we're referring to as phase one. It goes from Wheatland up to the OPUD wastewater treatment plant. That's about $130 million. Phase two of the project, you can see the lines going down 40 Mile Road. Those are the kind of royal blue lines, down 40 Mile Road and down Rancho Road. That's water and wastewater down to those two areas. That will bring wastewater and water to the whole sports and entertainment zone as well. So we're focusing right now on phase one, and it doesn't mean that phase two is any less important. It means that the State Water Resources Control Board, the grant that we've verbally been told we're getting from them, really only applies to the phase one part. That's the regionalization of two disadvantaged communities. And so That is the grant that we're waiting on, that everything is ready to go on, and we're just waiting until we can leap into action once they confirm that we've gotten the grant. But again, that's no less important than phase 2 for OPUD. So using this solution, this collaborative regionalization approach, Wheatland's going to be able to decommission its wastewater treatment plant, and there'll be, yes, Wheatland sewer rates, their wastewater rates, will go up a little bit, but not by $1,000 a month. I'm just saying, I think they'll go up a little bit, but not by $1,000 a month. So there'll be a tremendous savings to the Wheatland users. Using for OPUD, more fully utilizing its capacity will be a savings to its customers. As part of this project, OPUD is modernizing some of its wastewater treatment plant as well. So it will last longer than the original life. There's possibilities for connection in the future for Beal. And I had a question at the Wheatland City Council the other night, will Beal just be able to connect? Well, yeah, they'll be able to connect, and there'll be capacity for them to connect, but they'll have to pay for their connections. So they'll have to pay for the capacity use in the conveyance pipes. They'll have to pay for their connection and their treatment at OPUD, the OPUD plant. We'll have infrastructure in the South County for commercial and industrial. There'll be protection for the surface water and the groundwater from discharges. And it also enables future septic conversions. And lastly, I just want to comment, this whole process has been very respectful of the jurisdiction's general plans. So all we're doing is bringing the wastewater in. No comment on what the county's doing in their general plan or what Wheatland is doing in their general plan. We're not a part of that. That's what they're doing. So here's the schedule as it looks now. For phase 1, we are hoping to get the State Water Resources Control Board grant. That's a $30 million grant. The way the State Water Resources Control Board works is you have to get your application in, and then they go through several very in-depth reviews. So there's a technical review, there's an environmental review that the state board does, there's a financial review, and you need to get everything in and everything ready to go, and then they'll say, okay, well, here's how much money we have, and so we promised you 30. Honestly, it could be, but we only have 20 left. Or we promised you 30, but hey, we've got 50 now for you. If only.
Tremont.
Yeah. So we hope to get that by the end of March, sometime before the end of March. March and April will be the finishing up of the design and developing the bid documents. And then June through October, all the bids will be out. And this summer, for the first part of the contract, which is, let me explain. This will be bid out in 3 separate contracts. One contract is for basically the pipes in Wheatland going up to Pump Station 21. The second contract, construction contract, will be from Pump Station 21 to the OPUD wastewater treatment plant. And then the third construction contract will be for the improvements and the expansion of the OPUD wastewater treatment plant. We want to get that first one, the Wheatland conveyance, the pipes and the Pump Station 21 out first. And that we're hoping will break ground this summer. And then completion for all 3 of the contracts and hopefully both of the phases would be March of 2028. So the current status, Wheatland is done with their engineering. We brought in a construction cost estimator, a firm to actually take the drawings and estimate what the actual construction cost will be. We did that for 3 reasons. One is to identify any roadblocks or obstacles that might pop up from the engineering drawings. You know, is there a tree right in the middle of where we think the right-of-way was going to be? Is there anything that the engineers didn't anticipate that the contractors are seeing on the ground? So that's the first reason. The second is to help us identify what's the best path for contracting this out. They are the ones who suggested the 3 different contracts. And then third, we just wanted to make sure that the engineers' estimates for construction were kind of within the realm of reality. So that has been done for Wheatland. For OPUD, the engineering is projected to be done in the first quarter. The construction cost estimators have already started working with OPUD to get those other 2 contracts, estimated. We are right now working on the financing. That includes agreements between all of the parties and looking for more grants. And then all the agreements it's going to take to actually operate this. So we have this master financing agreement that binds everybody. And then there's operations agreements between OPUD and Wheatland. There's connections agreements. There's all kinds of agreements that come under this master agreement. So we're working on those. And then as soon as we get started and OPUD is done with, their engineers are done with the design, they're going to finish up the engineering for that phase 2. Those are the lines going down 40 Mile Road and Rancho Road. So here's where we stand on the financing strategies. I said 130 for phase 1, 70 million. These are the costs of phase 2. So the whole project right now is about $200 million. The sources, I don't know if I can get that out of the way. We are in the intended use plan for the State Water Resources Control Board for $30 million. That's the first thing we hope to get confirmed, that it will be $30 million. Wheatland, out of their reserves, will be paying $3.5 million. I have OPUD down for nothing on this. And let me just say that the money, there's some financing sources that could move between phase 1 and phase 2 and some that can't. So this might change a little bit. Potential other sources. We have applied for 2 $20 million grants to the EPA. Wheatland applied for one of them and OPUD applied for one of them. Those, we were told, these are some of the best applications we've ever seen. Okay, and then a month later, we got the email that said, we had a lot of very qualified candidates, so it's going to take us a little longer to get award notices back to you. And we don't have quite as much money as we thought. So we're waiting to hear on those. We are putting in 2 grants for the economic development assistance, 2 $5 million grants. Those are awarded on a rolling basis. Wheatland is putting one in and OPUD is putting one in. And we could put more in, like for the phase 2. So those are the grants we've applied for right now. We also have developers that we are working with who will benefit by having an updated wastewater system for Wheatland. There are 2 larger developers, one that we're actively negotiating with, and the second one, as soon as we get this financing agreement done, then we'll be approaching them as well. When we get to phase 2, we'll be talking to the casino and the tribe because this will greatly benefit them as well. So this is really, as you can tell, still in a state of flux. We're trying to button things down. But if we got everything that we've applied for, we'd have $93.5 million. So I'd still be looking for $106.5 million. And it's not just I mean, there's a whole team of people. Wheatland's helping, OPUD's helping, the county. The county put in some money to upsize pipes going under McGowan. The county has also purchased property for OPUD, that they needed for the expanded use of their wastewater treatment plant. I do just want to add on the financing sources that this is going to be a complicated monster to administer, frankly. We're going to have several different funding sources. All of those funding sources have different reporting requirements and different requirements for what they could be used on. And we're also going to have 3 contracts, so potentially 3 contractors and 2 owners. And it's just going to be a fun puzzle putting together, which I am sure we can handle. Our financing department gives me confidence that they can handle it. I do. No, but it's close to. Oh, thank you. What'd you do? It did. Okay, so next steps. I told you next steps were going to start coming faster. We are today, this afternoon, all the attorneys from the different representatives and the principals are going to be working on that master MOU, the funding or the financing MOU. We'll have to update other agreements. There are a couple agreements that Wheatland and OPUD already have approved, but with the final numbers, we'll have to update those and develop other agreements. Complete the construction cost estimate for the OPUD portions. Develop bids for construction management and then for construction. Complete engineering on phase 2, which are those lines going down 40 Mile Road. And then confirm the grants and just keep looking for more money and more funding. The final thing I want to say on this before we open it up to questions and Bill Zanoni, if he has anything to add, is I've been asked, why don't we just form a JPA? You know, why don't we just form a wastewater JPA? That might be a really good solution in the future. It takes a lot of time to really develop a JPA. And frankly, we just didn't want to slow down the process by doing that first. If, and this, I'm talking 20 years down the road, as we approach capacity at OPUD, we have left open the opportunity to connect OPUD to Linda. And when we do that, since Linda is handling Marysville's wastewater right now, we would have a regional wastewater system. And at that point, it seems like it would make sense to have a regional JPA governing the operation of that whole system. So that's there to come. I just want to be really transparent and open with things that might come down the road. So with that, let me ask Bill. Bill, did I miss anything? Do you want to say anything? Oh, okay.
Good morning. I'm Bill Zanoni, City Manager for City of Wheatland. I think you covered everything as usual. I just want to say that this project is vital to the future sustainability of the City of Wheatland and really all of South Yuba County. And this is not a project that we, the City of Wheatland, could do on our own. So we, and I'm speaking on behalf of all 5 members of our City Council, appreciate Yuba Water Agency's willingness to partner with us on this project. This is going to be a complicated project. We've got multiple agencies coordinating, but I think so far everyone is working well together. And I also want to thank Terry Daly, because Terry has been right there alongside myself through this entire process as we work out the details and bring these three agencies together. So I thank you for your participation in this project.
Bill, thank you for coming up and speaking, and hopefully we can get this done before the Band-Aids fail.
That would be great. We've got heavy duty Band-Aids, but they're only Band-Aids.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
Through the chair, no questions, but just a couple comments. So thank you, Terry. Thank you, staff that's been working on this, and thank you to our partners. Thank you for being here today, Bill. As you mentioned, this is such an important project for not only South Yuba County, but really all of Yuba County. It's important for water quality. It's important for wastewater rates for almost half of the residents of the county. It's important for economic development. It's also important for for national defense. And so it's great work, and appreciate the update. And I'm excited to see some shovels out there, hopefully later this year.
Ew.
Right.
Yeah, I have some comments too. I've been involved in the committee on this. I've made some comments at committee meetings that I thought maybe I should make a little more publicly today. And occasionally things come along in my life and my own business or other things I'm involved in that keep me up at night. And about 4 this morning, this became one of those things. So thanks for that, Terry. But I did get up and take some notes about my thoughts because, like you said, it's such a complicated monster that it's kind of hard to organize all the thoughts around it and try to fit all the pieces of the puzzle together. And so I started thinking about for my own personal timeline on this project. I probably first heard about it 3 years ago, a year before I was on this board. And the news at the time was, we think the state is going to fully fund this, and it's a great project for the county. And obviously it really was, still is. 2 years ago, I got on this board. That was actually even a little more firm at that time, that I think that the state was telling us we're going to fully fund this thing. And then over the last 2 years, we've gradually lost commitment from the state for various reasons. And so last June, we committed to the concept of a loan. I think actually I was the first one to say that out loud in a committee meeting. I'm sure others were thinking it, but I said, well, could we figure out a loan to keep this project going, keep the momentum going? There's been so much great momentum. And I realized last week at the Wheatland City Council meeting that we're at a really critical time here. We could lose that momentum if we don't get all of the funding figured out pretty soon. The conversations around that loan have been, in my mind, and I think others on the board would agree, that there needs to be a reasonable plan for repayment. And that's where it gets hard, right? We know we can come up with the money to loan. And I think that if there was no timeline to worry about, we would get repaid eventually for it. The problem is we're going to be depending, in my mind now, I'm not an expert on government financing. I know that we have someone working on that, and maybe there will be a plan that comes forward that eases these concerns. But what I think it's going to depend on is impact fees as developments happen. That's what our repayment plan will depend on. And the hard part about that is that the timeline for development is so unpredictable. If we knew that, well, X number of houses will be built in 5 years and X number in the 5 years after that, if we knew those numbers, then we could easily figure this out. But that's very unpredictable. So there's going to be some level of risk in this loan that we make. And so I started thinking about, okay, then, so where are the potential impact fees going to be coming from? And there's several potential sources. So the industrial zone land on Rancho Road is one possibility. We've kind of been told if we build it, they will come to that. Essentially, is to paraphrase, that's what we've been told. So that's uncertain. The sports and entertainment zone. There certainly have been various plans over the years. There's maybe the most serious plan has come forward recently. There's still some uncertainty there. I wish that we could get the tribe or some other developer to jump in right now and say, hey, we'll help with phase one. That doesn't seem real likely. We certainly will need them for phase two. Another thing is Beale. I wish we could get the Air Force to jump in right now and say, yeah, hey, we need this real bad. We know they do. I think certain people in the Air Force also know it. I wish we could get them to jump in and say, hey, we'll kick in $30 or $40 million or something. But I know how hard that is to get a commitment from them. So what that leaves us with is, one is the existing problem in Wheatland that just has to be solved somehow. And two, the potential development around wheat. Those are the two things that I feel like could drive this. So obviously the water agency is very interested in solving the existing problem, just as you've described very well, Terry. And so then I'm thinking about, all right, what would give me more confidence that this development will happen in a timely manner in Wheatland and help us put this funding puzzle together. And so on the positive side to that, I look at the property that's in the Wheatland General Plan that's to the east of the existing city. In my opinion, I'm not a big pro-development guy. I've at times spoken out against developments around Wheatland, but this particular property, in my opinion, is the best place in Yuba County to build houses. And that's because there's on most of the property is out of the flood zone, has no flood risk, has little to no fire risk, and much of it is very poor farmland. So in my simple planning mind, those are big positives for that development out there. Has a couple of challenges, obviously the sewer one that we're talking about, and transportation, which is also being worked on. And so I thought, here's another positive is the big developer out there, AKT, has a reputation for doing good developments and caring about the communities that they build in and coming through. And, in the development world, I don't pretend to understand their business, but a lot of people have failed at it. And AKT has been around a long time and, maybe the most successful developer in the region. And they've done that by being good at it. So from an observer standpoint, I really hoped they would have a representative here, but so I'll depend on Terry and Bill to carry this back to them. But I think they're smart. I think they're incredibly patient. They know when they acquire a piece of property that it could be decades before they develop it, and they're patient. They're good at forecasting. I think to be successful as a developer, you have to be able to forecast what your costs are going to be and then control them. And when they looked at this project and said, wow, the state's going to pay to put in infrastructure for us, if there's no way they're going to come forward at that point and say, well, let's kick in a bunch of money too, because they didn't need to. And obviously they have other costs to develop that, and they thought they could get further along before they needed to pay for sewer. The other thing interesting about AKT is they own a lot of farmland too. So, I know of one, huge ranch in Yolo County that they are the primary owners of. And this particular property in Wheatland has been profitable for them to farm. And I've often heard over the years that Mr. Tsakopoulos enjoys farming. and has been successful at it there, and will do that as long as as he feels like. So I guess we're at a point, when I thought about all those things, I thought, well, we need to know, do they want to be farmers or developers on this property? And I'm okay with either one, but we need a commitment out of them at this point. And I think the only way, they can say, they have been gradually working on entitlements. They went through an annexation process. They've done some work, but they haven't broke the bank yet on that. And I just think it's time for them to get off the sidelines and commit some serious money. And so that was a long way of a long talk to get to that point, but I just wanted to explain my thought process.
I really appreciate your comments. Thank you. You summarized that very well. There are a lot of risks in this project, and we have, as we worked on it, tried to do whatever we could to mitigate or control those risks. So, for example, yes, Mark Northcross, whom most of you have met as our financial consultant, he's the one that we refinanced the Plumas Lake bonds. We did a workout of those bonds when the bonds appeared to be turning into toxic debt. And so that's all taken care of now, thanks to Mark. He was the one that negotiated all of that. Brought him on, he's been working with us this whole time, because if the Yuba Water Board decides to loan this project money, it does have to be a bona fide loan, and it has to be paid back, and there has to be an interest rate. And you, as the board, need to know how long it's going to take and what are the risks. And so that's why we brought Mark on. We have done additional things, like we contracted with an absorption consultant who looked at the entire region, the state of California, and the nation to say, okay, these are the best projections we can come up with of how many houses will be built each year going forward, so that we would have a little bit more comfort of, okay, there will be enough development to pay this back. So we have been looking at the risk. At this point, and Wayne and I were talking a little before the meeting, we are working on the cash flow of this project, and also at the drop dead points. I mean, I'm sure I could come up with a nicer way to say that, but I just want to be upfront. If we don't get $30 million from the state board, I can't recommend going on with construction. If we don't get developer input, not input, but financial input and agreement, and we're meeting with AKT on Thursday, by the way, again. There are two big developers down there, and if we can't get both of them on board, then that might be a deal killer. There are two big developers. AKT is by far the largest, and of course they'll go in phases, and transportation plays a part in that too, because they can only build a certain number of homes before they have to have the, whatever we're calling it now, Beale Expressway, before they can build more. There's another developer, Lewis Communities, which is on the books for close to 600 homes. They're a little farther along in the process because they were fully entitled, and then I guess the recession hit and they backed off. And so they have recently, come back to the table and said, okay, this looks like a better time to do this. But agreed, we will have agreements with them that we will bring back to you before we can go forward with this project. So appreciate your thoughtful comments. And the next time it wakes you up at 4 a.m, you can go ahead and call me, because I'm probably awake on it too, worrying about it.
Thank you. So I had a follow-up comment on that then, Terry. I think it's such an important project. I don't think we should even throw deal killer out there. I think we need to roll forward no matter what. If we have to bond and do it and then charge hookup fees later in the future, but it will bury Wheatland if we don't move forward. And apparently if they're band-aided back together, we just have to really figure out how to make this work. That was my kind of my follow-up on that. I don't know what it'd be per hookup. Somebody I'm sure studied all that, how many hookups there are currently and how many in the future. You know, but it will be, you know, I complain. I've got a lot in a small subdivision on Donner Summit, and I haven't hooked up yet, but they raise my hookups every year. It goes up and up and up. But it's maddening, but it's still cheaper than a septic system. So I just think we really need to figure out how to make this happen, whether it's going to be bonding or, you know, and charging those people as they hook back or whatever. So anyway,
Thanks for your support.
Yeah. Any other comments?
Through the chair.
Yeah.
I just, without a JPA in place, it seems like there wouldn't be equal representation when we're going through negotiations. So I just want to make sure that the board and everybody working on this project really focus on making sure that when we do hit capacity, it doesn't affect the existing customers of OPUD, because I don't think they should have to pay for any part of this, right, this expansion, because they already have the services and it's on a schedule for a slow increase. So we just want to make sure that gets maintained for those people. But great project. I'm all in favor of regional waste and water at this point.
Thanks, Director House. I'm all with you on that. And in fact, what these guys have heard me saying a lot is, as soon as this project is done, we need to start planning for the connection to it, because this one took 30 years, right? So we need to start working on that. You know, how are we going to get that one done? And for the JPA, I really appreciate Andrew's work on the financing agreements and all of the agreements. A lot of the JPA function can be taken care of right now with those agreements. And in fact, those agreements, if I'm understanding it correctly, will really serve as the kind of the basis for the JPA going forward.
Through the chair.
Yep.
There was a project that was supposed to go off on Earl way back when. And there's a sewer line from the freeway overpass to I think Griffith or a little further. I don't know if that might help Beal at all.
Thank you. I'll research it and find out.
They didn't know that the recession was coming, so they went ahead and said, "Hey, put a sewer line down." All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other director's comments? Anyone from the public want to say anything on this?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So we're
Through
gonna,
the chair, yeah, I think we have a action item on that, and I'll move to establish the ad hoc committee with the recommended nominations from you.
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
No more.
Managers report.
Okay, where do I start? First off, I want to thank Terry for all her work on that project and the presentation. Once again, very thorough. And honestly, I don't think that collaboration, even Director House, even without the JPA, which I tend to agree with you about the governance of that whole situation. JPA is probably ultimately the best governance structure. But even without that, Terry's done a great job of pulling them all together and getting to the point they're at. Director Bishop, your message about the developers kicking in financially, that message will be taken to them directly following this board meeting. So I think that was a great summary of the project. And I think your final message there was we need the developers to step up and commit. So that message will be taken there. And then, that's it. That's a great project. I'm glad to see it's going forward. Okay, so manager's report. So, and Director Matthews, I see you on the screen. I'm sorry you don't have a copy of this in front of you. I'm going to talk about the table that I go over quickly every 2 weeks that today I'm going to spend a little more time on because it's a little more meaningful. So we're in, let's just call a flood watch situation. Every 2 to 5 years, we get the kind of flow we're seeing in the lower Yuba River and inflow into New Bullard's Bar, something on the order of 30 to 40 to 50,000 cubic feet per second at the Marysville gauge. somewhere like, 30 to 40,000, which is a lot of inflow into New Bullard's Bar. We stand up our internal flood team, which has grown since the last time we set it up and has grown since 2017 when I first participated in it. And it's grown and it's super effective. So I just want to let the board know it's been very active since, let's say, Thursday evening last week, maybe earlier, but I wasn't involved, so team, sorry. The team is awesome. We have, I'm just going to say 10 to 15 folks. This isn't everybody. We've got operators, we've got maintenance folks or whatever, but 10 to 15 folks that look at all this stuff every day. When I say all this stuff, they're looking at forecasts. They're looking at inflows to Bullards. They're managing the upper part of the watershed, Bullards, Log Cabin, Our House. They're also looking at Marysville. They're looking at the Marysville gauge. They're looking at what's going to happen at Simpson Lane. They're calling OES. They're dealing with Department of Water Resources. They're dealing with the Army Corps of Engineers. They're talking to Marty Ralph. That's a whole, that Marty Ralph, Dr. Marty Ralph, let's just say the boss of Scripps. The creator of the atmospheric river scaling system, talking to him directly on what these forecasts are going to produce and preparing this county for flood events. This one ultimately turned out to be a minor, like 2 to 5 year event, but we stood up everything as if it was and prepared as if it was going to be, a serious flood, because you never know. I mean, I'll just tell you, the forecast between Thursday last week and Friday significantly increased. Now that the storm kind of mellowed out over the weekend, but we were prepared for more than it turned out to be. Second point is we basically operated to forecast informed reservoir operations the last 7 days. Now, you guys have been briefed on the ARC spillway. You've been briefed on all the work we're doing with the update of the water control manual with the Army Corps of Engineers and with our intention to implement forecast informed reservoir operations. But we've also told you we can do a small scale version of that with the existing facility that we have there. And a storm like this, or maybe a storm, if this is a 2 to 5 year interval set of storms, maybe we can do it up to a 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 year event. Once you get bigger than that, you really need that additional capacity, that lower elevation spillway. But what happened the last 7 days was standing up our internal procedures, testing all those, the routine stuff, and also looking at forecasts and operating to basically practicing FERO. So I just want to let you know that's what goes on here. A lot of work had gone on behind the scenes. I was prepared to send you all, the board, I know you were on the email list from our press release on what we were doing with spills at Bullards and such. And I was prepared to send you an email over the weekend if things got more serious, but they didn't. So, I just figured I'd talk to you today about what went on. And I just want to let you know that that's what we have going on. We're kind of practicing for a bigger event. I'm happy it wasn't more than it was. You have a wonderful team behind me working on this stuff, and I want to thank them. I told them this morning on the 8:30 that I'd thank them directly. Some of them are in this room. Most of them aren't. They're out working in the watershed doing stuff. There's actually a Division of Safety of Dams inspection at Our House and Log Cabin today that we specifically scheduled for today because we can open and close the low-level outlets without any impacts to downstream flows because we have so much inflow. I mean, that right there is just a representation of these guys thinking ahead. Last week they called those guys and said, hey, we're going to have a situation on Tuesday. We could open our low-level outlets. Do you want to come out? And they got the guys out there. So anyway, just letting you know that all this relates to the table, my first item in my report, and that is we aren't currently encroached in the zone. So New Bullard's Bar is at 788,000 acre feet of storage. That storage number means a lot when we're talking about hydrogeneration in the summer and we're talking about irrigation deliveries. But the number that means the most today in this flood situation is the middle column, and that's the flood space required of 170,000 acre feet and the flood space available of 177. So we have 7,000 acre feet available. This is at midnight, so probably even less now. So we're below the flood space, and that's all in coordination with the Army Corps of Engineers primarily, but also with DWR. We're actually going to use the reservoir for flood capacity in the next few days. So oftentimes I will come to you in talking about water supply, I'll say, hey, we received a deviation from the flood space requirement in, let's say, March of a dry year, where we can actually put some water storage in the flood designated space for future water supply in a dry year where we're managing to our flood curve. You might think, oh, we want to stay out of the flood space. We want to stay out of the flood space because most commonly I'm talking about the flood space that way. The flood space was designed to be encroached on. The flood space was designed to be used, but it takes a storm like this for us to actually talk to the Army Corps and say, okay, how are we going to strategize based on the forecast and based on the inflows and based on the downstream impacts on the levees? How are we going to strategize utilizing that space? You kind of have one shot at it. You can kind of fill it up one time during the peak event. And what you want to do is you want to minimize that peak flow downstream, let's just say along the levees at the Marysville gauge or at the confluence of the Yuba and Feather. So we will do that over the next couple of days. The peak of these storms is going to be, the inflow is going to be, the peak of the storm is tonight and tomorrow, and the peak of the inflow is Wednesday and Thursday. And we'll work with the Army Corps to backwater up in Bullards, somewhere around 40,000 acre feet. So maybe a quarter of that 170,000 acre feet, and take off the peak flow downstream to minimize any impacts. Now, if the public's listening, don't worry, this isn't a major event. This isn't like water high up on the levees. But what we're doing here is we're practicing FERO, we're exercising our relationship with the Corps, and I'm showing you what goes into this every 2 to 5 years, how we take the peak off of the storm and we utilize our flood space. So I only get, every 2 to 5 years an opportunity to talk to you about this. So I'm spending a little more time explaining it, letting you know this is how it works, and also saying it's practice for FERO. So I'm going to stop there. I'm a little disappointed that Director Matthews isn't here. That speech I just gave was directed at him. But I'm happy to answer questions about that if you have any, and then I'll go on.
I'll say that I recognized it last week when I saw the news that we were going to start spilling. I think Friday was the day, right? We started. And 2 years ago, when we had the wet January, we certainly did not start spilling that far ahead of the peak flows. So congratulations on getting that practice in and getting a head start on FERO. I think that's pretty cool.
All right, thanks. So the next thing I want to talk about is you have 2 months worth of generation income summarized there on page 1. I'm not going to go into the details, but I'm going to say when we're done here today, read that. There's a change in market conditions, and I've been letting this board know over the past few years that we're seeing record market conditions. We had, let's just say, from calendar year 2021 through 2023. Record natural gas prices, record overall CalISO generation prices, and then record prices for our ancillary products and carbon-free resource adequacy and such. That's turning around, and we used to forecast based on a very conservative number. We would just we'd look at the market over the past 10 to 20 years. We'd increase it based on kind of an inflationary factor that we had, and we would always use a very conservative hydrology. And a few years ago, we decided, look, we have enough record now, we have enough kind of financial knowledge of how the market works. Let's get a little more detailed in our forecasting, and let's actually forecast based on the previous year's market conditions and then a medium hydrology situation. And now what you see there from November and December is kind of, we targeted pretty well on our forecasts versus actual on the actual hydrology, but what's totally different is the actual price per megawatt hour. And what has happened in the CalISO market is it is tamed. It is back down to where it was, 4 or 5 years ago, and that's pretty much due to the natural gas supply and natural gas conveyance and storage. And so I tell you all the time, our prices, unless you get into a major heat event, our prices mimic natural gas, and wherever the natural gas goes is kind of where hydro revenue goes, and that's what we're seeing now. So I'm letting you know that we have got a more detailed forecast, but it's based on the past 3 years, which were really high. So you're going to see several months probably coming up where we miss it on the low end, and it's just based on how we structure the forecasted numbers. And I'm also letting you know that the CalISO market has mellowed out. Now that's the CalISO market, the megawatt hour price you get for the actual electrons that are generated at our generators. You'll also see there's kind of a fluctuation in the other 3 products we sell, carbon-free, resource adequacy, and renewable energy. And those products kind of went through a little bit of a spike the last several years too, and it was primarily due to changes in the RA, the actual quantity required by a balancing authority to procure. And it's also a little bit of a regionalization and a new understanding of those products by community choice aggregators. And then it's just a bunch of, we have a bunch more buyers of those products with the development of the community choice options over the past 10 years. The more buyers you have, the less educated overall buyers you have. And so now they're getting educated. They understand how the market works. Just like we took, 9 years now to understand how the CalISO has worked since we left PG&E. They're kind of getting a little more sophisticated. So those prices for those products are coming down. So overall, I'm just letting you know that the market fluctuates, and we're seeing a fluctuation. Any questions on that?
Oh, just a comment. Hopefully we'll all see that on our PG&E bill on the other end.
Remod.
I don't know if you want to talk PG&E or Cal Water or any other franchised service provider, but I'm happy to. Okay, so all in all, our generators are operating, our dams are operating. I reported back to you last board meeting about the Narrows 2 small bypass hood. It's a shroud. I talked about like a shroud around the fan in your car. That was removed at the time, and I let you know that we saw more damage than we thought. I got the report from the power systems team today that it looks to be repairable. We don't have to completely rebuild or remake one. We'll just repair the one we have, so that was good news. I also want to let you know, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, you guys authorized the purchase of a new crane truck. Our crane truck was in like a mid-2000s model. It didn't have the latest EPA stuff, so we sold that at auction, and we bought a $300,000 or $400,000 crane truck to do all our crane work. I'm showing you my age here, but computer-controlled devices are frustrating sometimes. I'll say it that way. It's been back down at the shop, let's call it the shop in Sacramento, a few times based on some digital controls. And I talked to Dusty, our mechanic, this morning. It is back and it's functional. And that's been a little frustration. And there's been a little inside joke between Dusty and I the past several months. But Dusty, if you're listening, good job getting that thing back and that investment functional. You'll see your typical forecast over the next several days. Once we get through this peak storm that I talked about, there's a little bit of a storm on Thursday. It's much colder, so it should slow the actual inflows to Bullards and decrease the flows in the lower Yuba River downstream of Inglebright. And then it seems to be dry, over the weekend. So that's our near-term forecast. I'll also say this storm set is obviously great for water supply. I mean, more than we need right now. Really dry in January, but this should help, and all the soils will be saturated, and the fact that the last part of this storm is cold will potentially get snow in the mountains and kind of build up that reserve. So things are looking good from a water supply standpoint. I will actually read the communications update because it's lengthy. It's because you have the kind of the lull around the holidays and New Year's, and then we actually get back to work in the month of January, and we actually do a lot of stuff. So this past weekend, our press release about spilling from Bullards was shared on the UBANet and mentioned in the Appeal Democrats coverage of the storm. We were mentioned in local coverage of the Cal Water rate increase issue as people speculated about how we might be able to help. On Friday, we issued our most recent quarterly external newsletter, which is now going to a distribution list of 2,059 people. And since our last board meeting, we held 2 crisis training exercises. One, a tabletop discussion with some training about the implications of artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, and the other, a functional exercise testing our response to a crisis like that. I will let you know that we do an annual training like this. It's a great training. We bring in retired employees. Maury, I know you're not listening, but he makes it tough on us because he knows how we operate and he knows what the risks to our system are. Oftentimes we'll do like a dam safety type of emergency. This time we did an AI cybersecurity type of scenario. It keeps us on our toes. I'll just say that the team did really well, but that's just a unique set of circumstances that causes just a different type of response. And I think it was really great, Dee Dee. I'm complimenting you right now for putting that together, you and your team. But it's really good to stress our team in unique ways. So thanks for that. So as we always do, we learned a lot, but I can say with confidence that our team works really well together under stressful circumstances. And every time we do this, we get better prepared for when a crisis hits. I want to thank everyone who gave up so much time over those days to help ensure we're ready when a crisis hits, and the team that helped plan the exercise. We also held a small gathering of people to discuss flood risk in Yuba County, and the potential implications of forecast-informed reservoir operations on the valley's frontline communities. This was coordinated with our partners at Scripps to support their research efforts and grow our communication network and build relationship with parts of the community we currently aren't effectively reaching. I heard that was a great interaction with those local members in the community, and we'll be able to maintain and build that relationship going forward. And we're really trying to ensure that we have the disadvantaged community voices in our planning efforts. It starts here with implementation of FERO and in flood planning, but we'll be able to utilize that for all of our efforts. Upcoming sponsorships include the Food Bank's No Empty Bowls dinner on Friday and the Wild and Scenic Film Festival the weekend of the 13th. And we're also sponsors of the Chamber's Gala on the 14th as part of our annual membership to the Chamber. Our next board meeting is on February 18th.
Thank you. Any questions? Willie? Okay, we'll go on to director's reports. We'll start down here with Andy. You good? Rennick?
I just wanted to say thank you. I had the opportunity to take some of our disadvantaged youth up to Bullard's Bar Reservoir and to our Power Systems headquarters construction projects so they could observe all of the crafts that they have, the trades that they have working to finish up their building and their site, and learn a little bit of history about the reservoir and hopefully spark some career path choices. But so we had Bonnie took us on the tour. Matt from Hilbers gave a good inside tour of the Power Systems facility and showed all of the different trades that were applicable. And then we had Sammy, Casey, Dustin, Carl, and somebody else. Some big names there giving information to our kids. So just a great tour, and appreciate them putting that together for us. And then as promised, I do always want to encourage us to work with Marysville. I know there was some speculation on how we can help Marysville with their water issues and their water cost issues, but I just encourage us to partner with them on anything they ask us to partner with them on, and whether it's just a committee and a conversation or anything that's workable. So thank you.
Seth, nothing? Wayne?
I have one thing at the risk of being today's Debbie Downer for the meeting, but in the news last week, Butte County and Sutter County both moving towards CCAs with Pioneer. And I know that's been discussed a lot in Yuba County and how the water agency might assist in something like that. It was interesting, I think, in the Butte County news, the article I read that they were promised a 10% savings. Well, I don't know how much that moves the needle for a consumer. It is something. I don't think 10% is anything to sneeze at. I think Sutter County, I read 7%. So I thought, well, maybe these are getting a little better because what I'd read a couple years ago was that none of these CCAs have been very successful in saving anybody any real money. So I thought maybe this is changing. So in 10 minutes on Google, I made my way to the PUC website. Pioneer is active in Placer and Nevada counties, parts of both counties. If you're a Lincoln resident, you have the option to use Pioneer. And the average Lincoln resident last year saved $3 a month on their power bill. So about 1%, a little more than 1%. So I don't know, how we get to 7 or 10 when history shows we're doing 1. But anyway, proceed with caution, I guess, is my, I think there's a potential of the fear of missing out right here when our 2 neighboring counties are jumping on board. And let's be cautious.
Okay.
Nothing.
All right. I have a few items. Rennick and I both went to the city of Marysville and ended up speaking. I was probably misquoted a little bit in the paper, but I also think we should try to help support them. And I think that's probably going to be coming up in there in the future. I went to the North Yuba Water meeting last week, and I'd like to acknowledge that Leona and Marika are both here in attendance. It seems things are moving along there, and they're getting things done and looking forward to another full irrigation delivery season this year and hopefully get some of the past things corrected up there. I was planning on going and doing a snow survey tomorrow with my snowboard at Boreal, but I threw my back out this morning, so I don't think that's going to happen. But I'm sitting here in pain. Couple of events coming up. March 29th is the Yuba County Search and Rescue fundraising dinner, their annual dinner right here at the 530. I made this comment at the Board of Supervisors meetings. It's very important to support them if we have the best search and rescue, in my opinion, anywhere. So I'd said if you're going to get lost in Yuba County, because they do a great job, and I'll encourage everybody to come and support that dinner.
What's the date on that?
March 29th, yeah. And the Yuba-Sutter Sheriff's Aero Squadron, When Pigs Fly, again, dinner will be May 17th, outdoors at the Yuba County Airport. No, that's out in a while, but also Mountain County's Water. I'm your guys' representative at Mountain County's Water now. I'm hosting, or we are hosting, an event here. They're meeting in April. So I believe it's April 10th and 11th. The meeting will be the 11th at the Water Agency. And I'd like to thank Fallon for reserving that conference room and everything for us and getting things lined up there. Thursday night reception is going to be at the Brick on D Street. So you guys will all be getting a formal invitation to that. So I guess that's about it. We have pod coming up, Gary, yeah.
I just want to address two things that came up in the director's comments. One is the Cal Water situation. Director House, I appreciate you asking us to help the city of Marysville in any way we can. I want you to know that I've already met with Jim Shadd about that, and I let him know we would be supporting him. And currently that effort is helping them analyze the data they receive through the request from the mayor at that meeting. So that's really the next step, is what the overall cost to improve the water system in Marysville is. So that'll take some time, but I also let them know, whatever results from that, I'm happy to help with that. So we've engaged on that. And the second one is on the CCAs that Director Bishop mentioned. I appreciate your concern there about the actual savings that these CCA customers are receiving. I just want to let this board know that we have had some discussions, both public and in closed session, about CCAs. The agency continues to work on options for CCAs in Yuba County, and it's very likely we'll be bringing an option to the county and this board at some time in the future. I don't know if that's a year away, 2 years away, or 5 years away, but I'll let you know that one of the major issues that, in my mind, independent of the CCA structures, the way CCAs are operating to provide advantage or benefit to their customers, independent of that, if the water agency is going to help, I think we need to get through some of our major issues that we're currently up against. And primarily, that's the relicensing of our FERC licensed projects. That's not going to prevent us from assisting, but that's consuming a significant amount of our time. And it's also a major hurdle in what does the future operation of this agency look like, and how can we help a CCA? There's ways we can help a CCA, like we currently be helping Marysville with Cal Water, analyzing data, helping them strategize on a way to move forward. That's one thing we could always do. There's other things we can do once we know what our FERC license is going to look like for 4 years. It just opens up different options. So I appreciate this board for being patient on that, and I understand and I sometimes get the fear of missing out. In my mind, and I go talk to Creighton, he calms me down and says, hey, we got this, we're doing some studies and we'll have something in the future. So thanks for being patient with us as well. I just want to let you know we're not doing nothing there.
Thank you. Charlie, can you hear me, and do you have any comments? I see you're online on Zoom. Okay, he's not raising his hand or turning his mic off. So Charlie did do a little tour, education tour. Rennick, who you went and somebody else go?
Yeah, so Wayne and I, Charlie took us around, showed us Cordua Water and the inlet off the Yuba River, some things that we've never seen before, and explained to us how the technology works out there and a lot of the history of how that came to be and how the water's been diverted over the years and the changes to the system out there. So it was great to get out there. I did have a question. There's like a park area right at the fish screen. or just like north of that? What is that? Like there's a parking lot, paved road, and some little canopy, is it? Okay, okay. We were just wondering what that was. I know they had security out there too, because they tried to run us off, so.
You get the wet dog in the
So-
front seat too?
No, just
Is that
plain.
north of the dam, kind of northeast of the actual dam, that little area?
Yeah, just.
Yeah, that's a private
northeast.
fishing club.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that one's a private fishing club. All right, so we have coming up Pod and ABP, and those are both going to be on F Street? Okay, so we'll figure about what, 10:30, 10:45 we can start? Is it listed at a certain time? Okay, yeah, okay, so we'll have a short social gathering before we head over there. Meeting's adjourned.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Hi, I'm Neil Goforth of Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties. Caring for elders or even yourself has challenges. Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties can help you address today's issues and plan for tomorrow with in-home and specialized care for you or your family members. Call us at 530-749-8800. Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties.
You've seen signs marking some of the gyms in Marysville. They're produced by Sapphire Sign Company, providing something small, large, and mobile. With decades of experience, Sapphire Signs has pioneered local production of a variety of signs, like temporary campaign-style signs, welcomes for unique events, building signage, event promotion, and vehicle customization. Need a sign? Make it a gem from Sapphire Sign Company. On the web at sapphiremarketinggroup.net. Sapphire.
In Marysville, where roots run deep, McNally Appliances promises to keep the best brands with a smile on its face. We service what we sell, it's a warm embrace. Competitive pricing you can't ignore. With every purchase, you'll love it more. From fridges to washers, all in a line. We install with care to make it shine. Major brands, trusted and true. McNally Appliances is here for you. Oh, McNally, we're your first choice. In Marysville, we help you rejoice. We service what we sell, don't need to stress. At McNally Appliances, we're simply the best. Our promise stands, we'll always be here. McNally Appliances, bringing you cheer.
McNally Appliances, 119 D Street, Marysville. McNallyAppliances.com. In Yuba County, there's a legendary diner.
Oh, it looks delicious. Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Where the parking lot tells a story. A story as simple as biscuits and gravy.
The food is good. The prices are wonderful. My dad has so many friends here that come here, and it's my dad and mom have known Mary Jane and her dad before Duke.
Duke's Diner on 7th Avenue, home of legendary chili, holiday pies, and generations of local residents preparing tasty, hearty food for generations of local people. Join Mary Jane and her genial associates as they serve meals you'll come back for. Duke's Diner on 7th Avenue, Olivehurst.
In the heart of the valley.
Yuba-Sutter done live. It's the truth that comes through.